Hey everybody. So I always get a lot of compliments on my pork shoulder. It's what sells the most, and it's one of the simplest things that I make for a variety of reasons. And I want to just spend a few minutes breaking down what it is, why I use it over a different cut, and what I do to it to make it where people enjoy eating it. So these are called Boston butts, and they're not actually from the rump of the pig. If I was a pig, and I think about this a lot, it would be this portion right here. This would be the Boston butt, right? So this in down is the picnic shank. Normally you'd think of this as a shoulder, but this cut of meat is actually behind the neck right here. So it's called a Boston butt though because they used to come in barrels when they were shipped in to the port in Boston called butts, and that is why the name stuck. So you can get this is called a lot of different cuts, like pork shoulder. This is what it's typically called, even though that's technically the picnic shank of what you think of as pork shoulder, which will have the flesh on around it and it's got the bone. But I call them pork butts, Boston butts, pork shoulder, a lot of different things. So if we come over here to see the setup, so I'm prepping a bunch today to vend an event next week, and I freeze it because it freezes and unthaws really well. So the first thing I do when I want to make a really good one, like I just buy them by the case, and whatever they give me. So I cut off the vacuum wrapping, then I'll take and I will wash it. I just rinse off that packing juice. And a lot of people have a lot of weird rituals when it comes to making good barbecue that are just completely unnecessary and don't actually contribute anything to the final product. And so my quest has been to try to scientifically eliminate the steps that are ritual and unnecessary and don't have a significant impact on the outcome. That's the scientist in me. All right, so we have our Boston butt. This is a pretty average one. I'd say it's about 7 pounds. Kind of small, but that's okay. So the first thing that we look for, and we don't even have to dry it off, that's an unnecessary step, is I look for anything that's sticking out like this. And I learned this from Aaron Franklin. This guy is a master. And anything that sticks up like this, you just need to cut it off, because as it cooks, you have to consider the aerodynamics of your pit, the convective forces based on what type of smoker you have. If you have a standard offset stack, or if you have a reverse flow plate, or if it's a Kamado and you get that convection all around, all of these have an impact on how you cut the meat, because the forces of air flowing over it is going to burn parts like this. And so this is going to be inedible. Either way, if you leave it on here, it's going to be inedible because it's just going to carbonize, because it gets a lot more heat exposure than something that's more aerodynamic. So we're just going to cut it off. So I'll start here and cut off this little nubby. And I choose bone in. Bone in because if you cook it right, the bone pulls out extremely easily, and while it's cooking, that bone is doing a lot of stuff on the inside. It doesn't release any marrow or anything, but what it does is it acts like an insulator, and basically a rod that heat is able to it is able to absorb heat, transmit it sort of into the center of the pork, and hold it there so that it has a more even cook. It's a more steady cook, and these things take forever to cook because they're so thick. We're talking about 8 hours to get through phase 1 before you do a wrap or whatever you do. That's just to get it to the internal temperature of 165. 8 hours. Because we do 225. And you want to, because of the carbohydrates and the rub that we use. You don't want them to carbonize, you want them to caramelize. And like glucose and fructose have different carbonization points and caramelization points. And fructose is able to carbonize much quicker than, or much slower than glucose. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them to caramelize and interact with the smoke rather than just turn black. So now that and they don't take much to trim up. You see something like this, how it's kind of flappy. You can leave this, but just smooth it over. If it looks aerodynamic, it's good. And you don't want to put rub in here because it's going to get nasty, but this is good meat you don't want to throw away. So just if it can smoosh it down, then it's fine. Take a look at it, and it's good. So, how to apply the rub. So, all my rubs are custom made by my sweet wife, and this is just a standard like paprika base rub. It's got brown sugar, a little bit of white sugar, rosemary, a few other things in there. Meathead's Memphis dust. You can look it up online. And the way that I apply the pork butt is this side, you want to apply it very liberally, because this is the side that's going to be up, and this is the side that is going to have a lot of the flavor. So we apply it liberally. And then after we apply it, don't smear it around. You can kind of push it to where you want it to go a little bit, but don't be like rubbing it all off. Just pat it. What you want to do is you want that liquid. You want it to draw out some of that liquid in the pork and sort of form something kind of like a cake. Like these have been here for a minute. And see how it's doing that? In just the time that I've been talking, it's already drawn that liquid out quite a bit. And these pork butts can absorb like a tremendous amount of rub and salt and whatever else you want to throw in there. Sorry, we're outside and there's cars. So in any case, we're going to rotate it on its side. We do it on this side because this is a side that needs the same treatment. It's on the outside, so we're going to pat it. We're going to pat it and try to draw that water up. When we pat it, what we're doing is we're getting the crystals closer to the surface of the meat so that they are able to interact with the water. And you can see the effects of this because it goes from a powder to a cake, just like this. So then we're doing it like this. This is at the bottom of the rub where the big particles rest. So about one of these is just a recycled paprika spice. We'll get 8 pork butts. So 8 pork butts come in a case. And that's what I usually do my standard. If I have an event, I haven't had an event yet that one case of pork butts has not been enough for. But then again, I haven't done any really big events. We're talking like 1,000 people. I've only done 100 or so. Maybe I'll do those in the future. Okay, this side. You want to do it liberally, but you don't want to waste it. There's a line where you've done enough, and you'll get that the more you do it. You'll know exactly where that line is. All right, let's do a little more. All right. Now this side, I wouldn't spend a lot of rub on this side. In fact, this is just about good. What we're going to do, we're just going to roll it, try to pick some of this rub up, because this is going to be largely wasted. When I cook these, I cook it skin side down, because a lot of times on this skin, sometimes it's hard fat, so it doesn't render well, and it makes it difficult to use, like if you're shredding it up with like a drill or whatever. You're going to pull this out, because if you serve this to somebody, they're going to get pissed. This is not what people want when they buy a pork sandwich. And so I wouldn't spend much rub on this side at all, maybe just a light dusting, and that'll make your rub go a lot farther. So there we go. That is how I prepare a case of pork butts for use. And next is the loin. I got the wings marinating right now. Ribs are a whole different story, and the brisket is the pinnacle of my scientific and culinary abilities. Maybe someday I'll make a profit on briskets, but I just don't foresee that happening. In any case, thank you. Give me some feedback, and if you got any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to answer.